Hi, everybody. I want to discuss an interesting pattern that appears throughout the portions that we've been studying, starting through the Yaakov stories and going all the way through the stories of Yosef and his brothers. I want to try to identify a message that's sort of a meta idea that's developed through these stories in their, when they're put together. I think that let's start from the end. One of the most intriguing and perplexing stories in these portions is the elaborate scheme that Yosef has around revealing himself to his brothers. He could have just revealed himself. He could have had a beautiful resolution. Oh my gosh, you guys have come here. Hugs, kisses. Let's talk, let's talk about how our father is doing. It could have been a beautiful thing, but instead, he has this scheme around the goblet, and it's a very strange and perplexing story. Why does he need to do this? He has his fancy bedazzled goblet, and he hides it in Binyamin's bag, and then he says, they stole it, sends all of his people to run after them, chases them, brings them back, and they say, oh my God, if anybody stole your goblet, that person should die. And then he says, well, no, they can be my slave. And then he searches all of their stuff for it to ultimately be in Binyamin's bag. It's a weird story, right? Now, when we look at it, is it ringing a bell? Does it remind us of any other story that we've read in the recent Torah portions? Do we see anything? Well, I imagine that perhaps it's reminding you of another story that we just read a couple of weeks ago. Because in the portion of Vayetze, Yaakov wants to leave Lavan, and Rachel goes and steals her father's trafim. This is interpreted in the translation as idols, but let's call them trafim. Rachel takes them. Lavan goes to chase after them, looks through all their stuff. Yaakov says, death penalty to whoever stole it, only for that to sadly seal Rachel's fate in the future. And the items that Rachel stole, interestingly, while translated as idols, the word trafim in the Bible is a pagan idolatry of sorts, but actually primarily used for like fortune telling, divination, knowing the future. You could see that in a bunch of places, like in Yechezkel, Ezekiel 24:26, when the prophet says that Nebuchadnezzar, asked questions to the trafim, and many other places in the Tanakh. And so if you aren't really sure that the story of Rachel stealing the idols from her father is similar to the Joseph story, twice Joseph mentions that he uses his goblet not for drinking his morning coffee or for having like cocktails with his friends, but for doing nichush, which means fortune telling, telling the future. So we have these two items that are planted or stolen and hidden, and everyone's searching for them, and they're both used for the same thing. It's like, hello, these are similar stories, and look at who the stories are taking place with. One is done by Rachel, and one is between her two sons. This can't be a coincidence. The similarities are overwhelming, but seeming like a mirror image. Rachel really took the trafim and is, cursed with a death penalty. Binyamin didn't take the goblet, but is ultimately spared the death penalty. But what are these stories trying to tell us? They must be related. So I want to dig in and suggest that the Torah is linking the stories to serve as a reference point, saying, oh, you want to understand this story? Well, first understand its predecessor. So if the goblet story is weird, then the trafim story, the story of Rachel stealing her father's idols, is even weirder in a lot of ways. Let's look back at that story. Yaakov sees that his cousins, Lavan's children, are gossiping about him and thinking bad things about him, and that he became rich at their father's expense. Hashem says, you know what, it's time for you to go home. And Yaakov is also feeling that. And he shares that with his wives. Rachel and Leah say, you know what, we feel the same way. And then there's sort of a twist. Instead of just going and saying goodbye, sayonara, he decides to just make a break, make a run for it. And at that point, Rachel snatches the trafim from her father and causes Lavan to chase after them like mad. Now, why? So many of the interpreters say that it was actually to keep her father away from idol worship. That's like what Rashi says. But really, he's a very rich guy in an idolatrous society. Can we imagine that she took the trafim thinking, well, I guess it's an unsolvable problem for my father. He's never going to be able to, go to the idol store and buy new ones. He'll just become a monotheist and worship the one creator of the universe. Because what? Because he can't make it out to the mall to buy new idols? Come on. Others, like the Rashbam, and it's a difficult thing to say, but hint that maybe she even, used them for herself. It sounds terrible. I don't want to even think about that. But do we really want to even accept the possibility that she was stealing idolatrous paraphernalia? We don't have to call them idols, but something that was used for, pagan practices. Neither of those explanations really sit well. So sometimes when you don't know why someone is doing something, you can look at the outcome that they achieve and work your way back and try to figure out what she was doing. So assuming that Rachel is pretty smart and she can see the likely outcome of her actions, it's probably reasonable to assume that if she is causing something with her perplexing actions, maybe that's actually what she wanted to achieve. So if we want to know why she did it, let's see what happens as a result of her stealing her father's trafim. So they're running away. Lavan chases after them. But if you look carefully at his words, he makes a lot of noise. Oh, you took my children and my grandchildren. I wanted to kiss them goodbye. But it seems that the primary reason that he chases them is not because of that. He says, listen, I get it. You miss home. You want to go to your father's house. But why did you take my gods? Why did you take my idols? Meaning, it seems that the main motivation for the chasing is really the trafim more than the actual sadness of missing his grandchildren. Now, this is an idea posited by Ariel Stolman. He says, if the outcome of taking the trafim is that Lavan chases them, and we don't really have a satisfying other explanation for why Rachel would have had any meaningful use for the trafim, maybe that outcome was what she was trying to accomplish. Maybe she was trying to force a confrontation between Lavan and Yaakov, because if you look back at the verses, it's really interesting. When Rachel is stealing the trafim, it is juxtaposed and paralleled in terms of the wording to Jacob running away. In chapter 31, verse 19, it says, now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's trafim. And then the very next verse, it says, and Jacob concealed from Lavan by not telling him that he was fleeing. But that's not what it says in the Hebrew. The Hebrew uses the exact same word as it uses to describe Rachel stealing her father's trafim. It says that Yaakov stole Lavan's heart, meaning he didn't tell him he was running away. It's like using the exact same word to tell us, pay attention. These verses are related. She stole the trafim perhaps because Yaakov was stealing her father's heart. He was stealing away. He was making a run for it. Again, if you read it like that, then Rachel is doing something beautiful. Yaakov's entire life is running away from conflicts. His mother, Rivka, said, run away from your brother. He runs. He doesn't say, wait. Maybe I'll talk to him. Maybe I'll hash it out. Maybe I'll give him back his bracha. Maybe I'll work this out with our father. Let me make things right. Give me a chance to just explain to him that I didn't mean to hurt him. He just took the blessings and made a run for it. When Lavan is totally abusing Yaakov, switching his wives, switching his salary, Yaakov's just like, okay. He says, why'd you switch my wives, Lavan? And Lavan says, oh yeah, we don't let the older one get married after the younger one. That's just not how we roll around here. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll work another 7 years. Lavan is constantly not giving Yaakov what he deserves, and he never actually opens it up. He's running away from conflict and running away physically, literally. So now look what happens. She steals the trafim. As a direct result, they finally have it out. Yaakov says, you have stolen from me day and night. You have abused me and wronged me day and night. And then when Yaakov starts talking, it's amazing. He's a man of so few words, and it's like a dam bursting. And we have probably the longest conflict he ever has with anybody. Usually Yaakov is quiet. He lets it all out, and he says everything that he needs to get off of his chest. And not only that, he puts to rest this rumor that's been flying amongst Lavan's family that Yaakov has been stealing from Lavan. Because what happens by stealing the trafim? Lavan actually gets the opportunity in front of all of his friends and all of his family, all of his cronies that come along with him, to dig through all of Yaakov's possessions. He's going from tent to tent, and Yaakov says, you've checked everything. Did you find anything that you have a claim is yours? So if he would have just left and run away, the rumor would have hung on. Yaakov stole from Lavan. That's why he's so wealthy. That's why he made a run for it. Now all of Lavan's crew are there seeing him go through all of Yaakov's tents, and not one thing that he can claim is his. Yaakov says, you look at everything. Did you find anything? So the truth comes out. His innocence comes out. And then Lavan speaks his truth too. How does he answer? He doesn't say, you know what? Sorry, I wrongly accused you. What does he say? He says, Yaakov, everything you have is mine. His real character comes out too. He always said, of course, Yaakov, I want you to be successful. I'm looking out for your well-being. I want you to build yourself up. I want things to be fair for you. Oh, yeah? Because when push comes to shove, he literally sees Yaakov and sees everything that Yaakov has and says, yeah, it's not that you were stealing one item and another. Everything that you are, everything that you have is mine. Just like Abraham separated from Lot and said, you go there, I go here. Just like he made a covenant with Avimelech, just like Yitzchak made a covenant with Avimelech in the next generation. It's Yaakov's time to come say, this is mine, this is yours. I know you think that everything that's mine is yours, but no. You have what's yours, I have what's mine. Let's lay down the ground rules. Let's lay down the border. And if he had run away, all of those rumors, all of that unclarity, all that uncertainty would just be hovering like a dark cloud for who knows how long. Lavan could have at any time just showed up in the land of Canaan saying, hey, I want to claim this and I want to claim that. What's marvelous is that right after that story, that's when Yaakov reaches out to Esav. When he runs away, we don't actually know when he starts back towards the land if he's planning on reaching out to Esav or if he's just sort of planning on avoiding the subject, laying low somewhere, maybe building a barbed wire fence around his little town. Maybe he's going to do that, or maybe he's going to initiate a resolution. We don't know. The very next story after this meeting with Lavan is that Yaakov sends messengers to his brother Esav. He's going to try to make things right. And on the way to doing that, what happens to him? He's attacked by an angel of God, seemingly an angel of Esav, and he wrestles with him. Now, even though he didn't initiate that wrestling, he also doesn't back down. That's a very different Yaakov than the one who's getting pushed around all the time by everyone. The angel actually says, can you let me go? It's getting to be the morning, meaning Yaakov was not letting go. He was not letting go. He was not trying to run away from the angel. He was holding him down. He's like, no, we're going to work this out. I want a blessing. And then his name gets changed to Israel. And it says, because you've wrestled with man and God and you've prevailed. So I get that you've struggled with the God. It's a celestial being. You've wrestled with an angel. What does that mean you've wrestled with man? And he's not struggled with any man in this fight. Well, what was the story that just happened right before this? He had two struggles. He struggled with the angel and he struggled just a moment ago with Lavan. And so we always think of Yaakov's name changing because he struggled with an angel. But that's not what the angel says. He says, your name is changing for two reasons. You struggled with me and you struggled with a man. And all of that was precipitated directly by Rachel stealing the Teraphim. Her action equally contributed to Yaakov becoming Israel. So why did she steal them? It's not impossible that she wasn't trying to take her somewhat conflict-averse husband and make him into a Yisrael. And even if she wasn't meaning to do it, even if it wasn't intentional, who knows? It doesn't even matter because in the bottom line, the direct outcome of the Teraphim story was that. So now, when we read the story of the goblet with Joseph, that story is going out of its way to hint to us that there is something to learn. In order to understand that story, we need to understand the Teraphim story. So you want to understand the goblet scheme? Read it in the context of the Teraphim story. Joseph could have just revealed himself, but then so much would go forever unsaid. They would immediately be like, oh, sorry, bygones, water under the bridge, right? Joseph needed to be able to chase after them and retrieve this hidden goblet in order to have the conversation that needed to be had, in order to precipitate the conflict that would lead to a resolution. Because without conflict, you don't have resolution. You just have lingering stuff. You just have skeletons in your closets and bad feelings that are swept under the rug. So he is forcing them to come and hash it out, and they say, we'll all be slaves to you. He's like, no. Only one of you. The one who stole, which, is going to be Binyamin. Only one of you should be the one who has to stay behind. Now, on the one hand, this would, of course, be difficult for the brothers to break to their father, obviously. But in a real way, he's offering them their dream come true, their way out. Rachel is gone. Yosef is gone. He can make Binyamin disappear and go away. And they would have the full inheritance to share it with no one, no competition, complete dominance. That's what they wanted, wasn't it? So yeah, they would have to disappoint their father, but they even had the perfect way out. Listen, Benjamin stole the goblet. What could we do? We tried our best. We even offered ourselves up, but no, he wouldn't listen. He wanted, to punish the thief. There'd really be no real reason not to take this deal. Sorry, Dad, we tried our best, they could have said. But Yehuda steps up and says what needed to be said. Yosef instigated this conflict in order to lead to the ultimate resolution. Just like in the time of his mother, he is reliving it in a way that forces the people around him to face things with courage and the willingness to accept the outcome, whatever it is. Just like Yaakov couldn't become Yisrael without that story, Yehuda could not become what he was destined to be, the leader of Israel, the house of David, without this resolution. And just as a side point, it might not even be the first time this is happening to Yehuda. I'm not sure that this story isn't also in some ways echoing the story of Yehuda and Tamar. Because Yehuda was avoiding conflict, telling his daughter-in-law the truth about why he didn't want to give her another one of his sons. It's not quite the same story, but she is also holding on to something of his. She is She runs off with an item of his. He sends his friend to go retrieve his items, but he can't find her. So she's kind of like stealing his items. And then he pronounces a death penalty for her in, the circumstances of her showing up pregnant. And then she ends up using those items that she had, hidden away from him in order to say what needed to be said, to have the conversation that needed to be had. And then Judah becomes who he needed to be as well. So it's not quite the same, but I think that we're definitely seeing a theme in these portions of people avoiding saying what needs to be said, and then using this method of, of this theme of the hidden items being revealed in order to lead to a resolution of the hidden feelings being revealed. And it's a profound lesson that problems never disappear. They just morph into other problems. We see our fathers and mothers in the Torah going through the same thing again and again until they finally understand the lessons that they need to learn and become who they need to become, until they have the courage to face, and until we have the courage to face our demons. They don't go away. We don't become who we could be. And each time it might be very painful. Yaakov is seriously damaged. He is limping. The brothers are seriously terrified and probably traumatized by facing the possibility of losing, of becoming enslaved or having Binyamin, God forbid, punished. But that's what it takes to become Israel. And I think before our very eyes right now, we are meriting to see Israel become Israel. When we look at our recent year, we're injured, we're like Yaakov, but if you can see past our pain and past our limp, we can see ourselves becoming Israel. For how long have we been acting like Yaakov? We see our enemies arming themselves, lying about us, terrorizing us, claiming that we stole the land that was given to us by our forefathers, promised by Hashem, and we're just like, okay, we'll defend ourselves, we'll have an iron dome, let's not get into a conflict, we don't want to initiate things, let's turn a blind eye, another stabbing, another shooting, another rocket attack. Who wants to open up and actually solve this? We're going to get hurt, we're going to get injured, we're going to maybe limp. But now we've been forced to actually become Israel, from the north to the south, to end Hamas, to end Hezbollah, to end the Syrian military threat, hopefully to do the same to Iran, and to anybody who threatens us, until they say, please, let us go. Like the angel said to Yaakov, let us go, let me go. This year has forced us to stop running away and to actually say the truth. We haven't stolen anything. You've stolen from us. We haven't stolen the land of our forefathers. You are the ones mistreating us. You are the ones lying about us and claiming untruthful things about us. It's time to set up a border, to set things right, to take what is ours, not like thieves, but proudly with our right. The price that we pay may be a horrible pain, constant pain for what we've lost in order to become Israel, for the righteous people that we've lost. But the other side is that we've faced our conflict courageously. And for Israel to say, we are not letting go. We're not letting go until you bless me. We're not letting go until this curse, this suffering, all of the lies that have been told about us, until they are turned into a blessing. For Yaakov to become Israel, and for Israel to say, we struggled, but we prevailed. May that happen and continue to happen in our times. With that, I wish everybody a beautiful week. Bye, guys.
Hey, this is Jeremy Gimpel. If you enjoyed that content, then you will enjoy all the content on the Land of Israel Network at www.thelandofisrael.com. And if you want to take it up a level, you can join our global community of people that learn together, that work together, that are all a part of a global movement of over 1,000 families all over the world. And you can join the Land of Israel Fellowship. Check it out on thelandofisrael.com.